Hello, everyone. I've got Sally Needham here with me today. Really excited to speak to Sally. I listened to her at a course early in the year and was really inspired. She got me from the beginning when she said this is going to evoke curiosity. I think that's something all directors of sport should have. Sally's currently working with the Norway women's football team, and she was the Academy Human Development and Performance Culture Lead at Sheffield United. So, Sally, thanks very much for your time.
No
What I'd really
problem.
like to talk to about is how your research and your work you think could actually help directors of sport in schools.
Yeah, so I've had a couple of bits with leadership at the minute. One I delivered at the football leadership course over in Manchester for sporting directors. And then obviously my role at Sheffield was players and staff, but a lot of it was staff. So, for example, work with our academy manager. Our academy manager as head of role, obviously we know, oversees all the academy. But for him to have a more purposeful journey, in a sense of for him to enjoy, he got a new role, understanding himself, and being able to strategically think and drive it forward, but also still have an ability to be able to go home and have home life. We know that in the football world, it really does affect, and we have a lot of high rates of divorce or people that are single. So how do we actually really involve and give them information that enables them to really have a fulfillment in job but in life? So with our academy manager, my remit is neuroscience. So I look at what the science is telling us for human development. So the things that probably used to seem a little bit fluffy, as people used to call them, now is backed up by science. So how did I help him? And the way that probably would relate back into you and the directors and the sporting would be the fact of our cameraman used to come in the morning, and he used to have his time in the morning. So he used to come in early. He used to do the bike. He used to do his breath work on the bike. So he used to do some nasal breathing on the bike. Then he used to do some meditation, have a cold shower, and then start his morning. I used to meet him every Friday on topics or language and things, and how we talked about how we structured the meetings. But for him to be present and purposeful and make really clear decisions that gives him time back. He needed to do things around strengthening his what we call window of tolerance to be able to cope with demands of life and the work life. So yeah, so for me, understanding we get talked about it all the time, get out into nature, do your cold water, the research. But actually when you start thinking, right, well, what do I need? What works for me, and start to put it into a routine, you start to feel the benefits. You're topping up your cup every day. So then by the time when you get home, if five people's thrown out some water in your cup, by the time you get home, you still got half a cup left for when you get home, which then starts the circle again for the next day. So for me, we talk massively from my perspective about players' well-being. Staff well-being is evenly important, because if they're not present and purposeful, we're not helping to promote emotional resilience in our players anyway. So, and it's conversations, being able to kind of catch and recognise tones of voice, what words are getting said, behaviours, and then not getting drawn into that, being able to be regulated. We know that in regulation, if you're dysregulated, you can't regulate anybody else. So if you're a dysregulated adult, you can't regulate a dysregulated child. So it's got to be where we really strengthen our window of tolerance to be able to cope with, as I keep saying, demands of work and then life as well.
It's really interesting because I think the feedback I get from a lot of directors of sport when I meet them is, first of all, they need more time for strategic thinking, and
Yeah,
and what's going to happen next year and in 3 years and in 5 years. And also home life is important. And a lot of directors of sport get home and their partners will say, you're not present, or they say they haven't got enough time with their children. These are important things, aren't they? Because I think, as you said, if we
yeah,
want to look after our families and our friends and our colleagues at work, the first
yeah,
person we've got to look after is ourselves. So
yeah.
what if you were to give directors of sport, let's say, three practical tips that they could do daily or weekly, Sally, what would be your top tips?
Breath work. It's the remote control for your body. And it's so easy to do in a sense of when you're driving in the car through the day. So there's different types of breath work, but realistically, as much as you can, nasal breathing is your main thing. And then we've spoke about box breathing that you can do. I would do a lot of meditation as well. We don't have to do meditation as that you sat really still in your own body for whatever. It could be walking outside. We know that nature and sunlight is massive for us. I'd say get some plants. That's a big thing. Get a plant or get a really scenic picture that's a really nice memory that's on your desk. Your brain doesn't know if you're thinking it or doing it or being there. So once you glance at it, it'll flood your body with them feel-good chemicals anyway. As I've got now, I've got like blue tint glasses on, so not as much on screen time. So yeah, so probably a couple of things there. Cold showers, journaling. I think it comes back to what you said about strategic thinking. We talk this all the time, and we sometimes think we've got to be doing all the time.
Yeah.
And actually, when then you finish for 6 weeks holidays, you probably crash and burn for the first couple of weeks because your cortisol's having to settle down. And so then you're not very well, and then you get into then strategic thinking. Loads of research about, and I know we can't do it because of the education system, but for 4-day weeks, it really is key the fact that if you give yourself the care and you're more present, you get more time back because
Yeah.
you get more time to do your job better, you get more time in your family life. So for me, it's those little bits of being, whether you put a reminder on your phone or structure it into your day, that 15 minutes of sunlight in the morning, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 3 times a day of breath work, 3 minutes in a cold shower, is probably your key things for really trying to put it into your life to strengthen your system, which then is going to help you.
Yeah, it's so true. I think I go into a lot of directors of sports offices, for instance, and they're pretty austere, and a couple of nice photos. And I'm trying to think if I've ever been in a director's of sports office that's got a plant in it. But they're simple things, aren't they? And I think the cold
Yeah,
shower is definitely something that's catching on after the Wim Hof series last year. I think I'm up to
yeah.
1 minute 15, and you start on 10 seconds, and you think, oh, there's no way I can do this, and then after a week you do 20 seconds, and you do feel really good for it. What
You
about
do.
yoga? That was another one you were talking about, Sally.
Yeah, yoga's helps for movement. So we're programmed for movement. So it comes back to education system, which we'll not go on to. But when children or adults have got an undeveloped stress response system and want to move, our bodies are wanting to program to move all the time. So doing yoga, you are linking into your breath work in your nervous system for movement, but also you're releasing any tension, any stress through your body. And also you're connecting into your body. So you're starting to be able to feel it more. So where do you feel your breath work? Where do you put your breath? How do you feel your stretch movement? Everything around trying to catch things for dysregulation is around being able to sense in. And that's a big thing we think we spoke earlier around, as an adult, are you working with adults or with children? If you are dysregulated, then you cannot help to regulate another human being. It's just factual. So the more that we can be regulated and setting a culture or leading from the top in this way of being, children these days, I used to get asked the question, well, how do you get your under 18s and your 21s to do breath work and yoga? Once you'll give them the knowledge and the science behind it, and then you'll give them the tools and you support them with it, it becomes part of who they are. I mean, Anthony Gordon at Newcastle's just released his podcast this week with Gary Neville, and it's all about visualization, meditation. Your brain doesn't know you're thinking it or doing it. It's like the plants. So you see the plants, it releases feel-good chemicals. It is such a simple tip to have in. That's why you look at any top restaurant, they've got plants in their restaurant because it's what gives us feel-good chemicals. It's what soothes us. So same as dogs, like a lot of the things with like the pets into hospitals, and it's what we know now, the science. We used to think, oh God, it's a load of codswallop or whatever, but now we know the science behind it and why wouldn't you put something in there that just gives the feel-good chemicals? So yeah, so it's there's a definite shift. I think more people are getting used to it. Yoga's massive. I mean, people perceive it, especially in the football world, to be recovery. It's so much more than that, so much more than that. From a holistic human development, trauma-informed practice. And we know that the majority, if not all of us, probably some trauma in us at some degree level. So using yoga or breath work in the morning before you start, we used to do a lot of it, is key for then bodily state is programmed, it's underpinned by everything, even learning. So for our children to learn better, adults to learn better, they've got to have a regulated and a steady bodily state. That's what everything's underpinned on.
Yeah, and I think that's the benefit for us now as directors of sport in lots of different areas. Things that we anecdotally knew were good.
Yes.
Now we have science to back it up, so we can explain to our pupils, to our staff, to our senior management, to our parents. So just a quick one to finish. One of the things you talked about at the course was polyvagal theory. So just so we know that this does actually work. What's polyvagal theory and how does it work?
Yeah, so polyvagal theory, Stephen Porges' work. If anybody checks it out, there's a Polyvagal Institute website now. He's just released a new book as well, Our Polyvagal World. So I got polyvagal theory delivered to me when I went and did a course in child development, brain development, neuroscience, attachment. So I went and did a school provision course away from football. And the polyvagal theory basically is a theory that states that we have fight, flight, but we also have freeze, and understanding what goes on. And a major thing for us is what's called our vagus nerve. It sits in our brainstem, well, there's two of them, runs down the side and runs into all our major organs at the bottom of our gut. So it's our gut instinct when people say trust your gut. And the polyvagal theory basically is a theory about that you can go into freeze response, you can go into flight or fight. There's also a response called social engagement. And once we can get into social engagement, we're up for learning, up for connection. And realistically, how we are as a human being for our connection and for our learning and for our well-being is all based on polyvagal theory. So when you understand that people, human beings, these are the states they go into, and if we look and recognize this, we can't get rid of it. It's evolutional, it's what keeps us safe, but you understand it and you understand people's behaviours and you help to shine a light on those behaviours, but also know how you can foster the behaviours for social engagement, social connection, which involves then emotional resilience, which strengthens our window of tolerance, which basically then gives us more scope, more soil, as we call it, for then performance on the grass or performance in school. So yes, the polyvagal theory is the way that people can see the world and experience the world, understand the world through their lens. And it's more, we used to talk about fight or flight, but now we've got social connection and engagement and our social engagement system, and then what people go into freeze response as well, which when they shut down, they go daydreaming. So there's all different responses, and how you understand it, how you then structure your learning around it, how you are as an individual that understands about where you put into threat, what is our glimmers, so what glimmers we give people or what we put into triggers, and then how we understand around how one human being sits inside of the next human being about neuroception. So I'm presuming that probably some people that sit in one classroom can affect the next classroom just by their nervous system and where they're sitting, and their threat detection. And so yeah, so Stephen Porges coined the phrase, the terminology about neuroception. But yeah, it's his theory on polyvagal theory.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sally. And I think for me, what I've taken away from this is there are so many techniques that we can use. And if you don't think you've got enough time to do them, I think you take the time, because then the time you do have is more efficient. So
Yeah.
that's always the argument. I haven't got time to do it. So listen, Sally, that was absolutely brilliant there. And I've got plenty to think about. And hopefully this will help our directors of sport as well. So thank you very much. I really, really appreciate it.
No, thank you for asking me, Chris. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.